Hey everyone, this is Drew Horn from Sumo Logic. Thanks for joining us here today at Illuminate. We've got another spotlight session for you today, and I've got a special guest from NGINX, and we're going to be talking about modern application architectures. So some of the challenge that we see in deploying and operating and trying to observe complex applications and architectures. So let's jump right into it. Damian, why don't you say hello?
Hi there. My name is Damian Curry. I'm the Community Alliance's technical director here at NGINX, which is now part of F5, and I just head up all things technical when it comes to this side of the house.
Great. And got a lovely little bio down there on the bottom. I think keep it short and sweet, right? My role here at Sumo Logic is working with all of our technology partners. So what I'll think we'll do is we'll hand it over to you. And Damian, why don't you tell us a little bit why you're here?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure modern application is a buzzword that gets thrown around all the time. And, this all kind of started from somebody who just kept asking us, what is a modern application? And when people would say, they'd go, okay, well, what is a modern application? Well, they usually have this list of things, okay, it must be a microservice or containerized or cloud native. And God, it can't be a monolith, it can't be bare metal. But, the more when you actually start peeling apart the actual different parts of a modern application, those aren't necessarily true. You can operate a monolith in a modern architectural way. And really, the more and more we looked at it and kind of tore it apart, we realized it comes down more to the outcomes. And so, what does the modern application architecture actually provide? And that's where it gets interesting because it's all about the different outcomes, the portability, being able to run multi-cloud, on-prem, multi-device, scalability so that you can grow to meet the user needs, resiliency so it's not a soft failover, it's everything's backed up, and agility. So there's a lot of overlap in all of this, but it's really these core principles that let you operate applications in this modern way. And so after we made this, kind of help define this for people, then we also, we want to make it a way that was a little bit easier to see, to understand. So we came up with a diagram here. And this diagram is really just trying to drive home how everything in when you're talking about these modern architectures is defined as code, whether it's the development teams that are actually writing the applications, or the, DevSec platform ops teams who are writing the automation for the deployment and the CI/CD pipelines and unit tests and all that fun stuff. So once we put this together and thought about it more and more, we thought, nobody's actually come up with an active, representation and a working implementation of this. So we set out to do that, and we've been building a push button automated deployment for basically this. And why we're here talking today is this bottom part here, right? All these different external, usually SaaS products that are really the cornerstone of these environments. It's great to have this scalable, agile environment, but now you've got infrastructure spread all over the world and all over the globe, and all these microservices. And how do you actually now troubleshoot things? You have all of this data coming out, and that's really where somebody like Sumo Logic comes into play in this, and really why we started working together. Being able to visualize all of that information, whether it's the observability or the log management and all of that, and then also the security compliance, because
Mhm.
as it's so much easier to deploy everywhere, the more globally diverse it is, the more security vulnerabilities you have open. So
Yeah, I
it's, oh, sorry, go ahead, Drew.
no, I was just cutting in. I love what you said earlier here. We hadn't talked about this before, Damien, and since we got everyone here listening today, you talked about modern application being more of just what the outcome is. And Sumo, it's funny because I feel like you're saying the same thing that I hear over at Sumo Logic. It's just a little bit different. So, as a full stack observability platform, we're really focused on outcomes, right? And the end user customer experience. So thinking about a modern application, the bar has just been set so high by the end customer today. Their expectations on how performant the application is, how quickly they're able to, complete whatever task they're doing, easy access from any platform at any time of the day, And so to me, it kind of feels more of like a modern application. It just needs to meet those outcomes. And so it
Yeah.
just peeling away that top layer, what does that mean, right? It's not necessarily how it's architected. It's not necessarily whether it's a microservice or if it's serverless or if it's containerized or not. It's these four key points here, and I really like how
Yeah.
you have this broken down into portability, scalability, right? Uh, just global exposure, agility. So if something does go wrong, being able to quickly, react to any sort of customer-facing issue,
Yeah.
resiliency, targeting, you got a large global exposure, you're going to have a large global customer base. So being able to, fail forward or quickly roll forward or roll back, right?
Yeah.
And then just accommodating like the 5 or 6 or 7 different platforms that even the same user can hit your digital property on. So I really like the way that you guys are looking at that.
Yeah, and I really wanted to break it down to that because I've seen it so many times where people are like, "Oh, well, we have to click this checkbox. We have to move to the cloud. We have to move to Kubernetes." And they end up with a overly complex, unmaintainable environment just because they were trying to click a checkbox. But when you kind of, I hate to say the term, but zoom out a little bit and go, okay, what are we actually trying to achieve at the end of the day here? That's the really important part in my mind. And yeah, it's funny how it does line up perfectly because I mean, hell, it seems like Sumo was kind of built as a modern app itself, right? So it's got this same sort of principles that we're talking about. And like I was saying, like it used to be that you were constantly scraping for any little bit of information. You were scraping those log files and getting those monitoring events and things like that and just trying to figure it out. And now we're in the complete opposite where we have so much information flowing out of these platforms and flowing into these systems. You have to be able to make sense of it all, especially
Yeah,
when you move towards this cattle not pets, right? You don't care about an instance. You're like, if it's something breaks, turn it off. If it happens again, well then yeah, we'll go start looking into it. But you really need that. You just need something to correlate it all.
yeah, and speaking of that, again, for those of you that are joining in today, definitely go check out the blog post that NGINX put out on this modern application reference architecture. I think, Damian, maybe y'all posted that at your conference a couple of weeks ago. But
Mhm.
I really liked the approach you're taking to try to solve this challenge and just making it easy to deploy, a full stack modern application architecture with just push button, right? Because again, like we're trying to solve the same problem too, but from the perspective of a machine data analytics platform, a full stack observability platform, right? So as opposed to solving this with push button infrastructure, we're thinking, how can we attach to all of the different parts of that modern application stack,
Mhm.
give teams full coverage across it, have a single source of truth, unified telemetry of logs, metrics, traces, and giving teams visibility across, whether it's their on-prem, cloud native, or hybrid deployments, right?
Yeah.
So the way we
Yeah.
think about it is kind of a couple of different layers here. So cloud and infrastructure, pulling in all of the events coming from the likes of AWS, Azure, GCP, et cetera, giving visibility into microservices platforms, whether it's our Kubernetes solution, or our new OpenShift operator. We have an entire catalog of applications in our catalog to bring together data from various different applications you're running in your infrastructure. And then same with APM and even real user monitoring and synthetic monitoring, right? So it's all about taking this data from all of these different layers of these
Yeah.
complex apps and trying to make sense out of it. So
Yeah, and I promise we didn't collaborate on these two slides. It was funny as soon as I
yeah,
saw Drew's slide here, I was like, "Oh, look, you're hitting all of the same key points." It's this thing where you've got all these different moving pieces and it's all about being able to collect the data that you need to make sure everything's running properly wherever it runs. And that true, multi-cloud approach, hybrid, and just not being tied to any one infrastructure is just so important in my mind, and just opens up so many opportunities when you can just easily move your applications around without having to be, tied into any of the big cloud providers infrastructure, right? Giving that flexibility to run where it makes the most sense for you, not where a vendor wants you to run.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, Damian. Speaking of, thinking about what's coming up next, I'm definitely interested in what's up next with your modern application reference architecture project. What I can say for the folks here on the call, Damian and I, we have a webinar scheduled here for November 3rd, where we're going to take these two slides with the same ideas from two different companies and put them together in the form of some actual use cases, and getting some data flowing from a modern application into Sumo Logic, and kind of just walking through some of those use cases and how all of this works together. So stay tuned for that, of course. Damian, anything you wanted to call out on, what's up and coming next with the Mara project?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't. Please join us on our webinar. We'll go into more details on that. And yeah, I mean, we didn't even get a chance to dig into the real. I mean, it's a push button deployment of one of these infrastructures. So we're trying to build in the open. We really want some community engagement. And yeah, please check it out. There's a shortcut there to the GitHub repo on the nginx.com site to make it easier to find. But yeah, we're looking forward to the webinar and digging in more with what we can do.
Great. And last point here, for those of you on the call that are using NGINX Plus, and are joining us as people interested in Sumo or existing Sumo customers, we just launched a handful of new applications for NGINX Plus. So feel free to go check those out, or our existing open source NGINX apps. And I think that's it. So Damian, thanks again, man. Appreciate you joining and giving us a little bit of insight to how you guys see modern applications. Appreciate it. And thanks again, everyone, for joining today. Hope you enjoy the rest of the Illuminate conference and have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.